Thank you, everybody. Sorry, I have a bit of a head cold, so I'll try to get through this, and hopefully my mind won't scatter all over the place. Uh, Today I'll talk about the two things, basically my volunteer experience on my first trip to Tohoku, and also a small story about something that happened that really kind of moved me and helped change my life and some of the people I hope who were there as well. We all know that on Friday, March 11th at 2:46 p.m., a massive earthquake and a resulting tsunami struck Tohoku. And we've seen the videos, we've seen the pictures, we've watched the TV reports. There's not a lot that I can add to something like that. The destruction that nature wreaked on Tohoku was immense. Now, there are three stages to disaster relief. The first stage is search and rescue. This takes about 5 to 10 days, and this is immediately after, obviously, and this is not a stage that I was involved in. The second stage is the emergency care of survivors. This is approximately 30 to maybe 90 days long. This is where you're getting in the blankets, you're getting in the food, you're making sure they're settled down, they're safe, things calm down a bit. This was the stage that I was involved in. And then there's the third stage, which is the rebirth or the rebuilding stage, trying to bring the community back to self-reliance. This will take anywhere from 6 months to 24 months, in this case probably a little bit longer. This is the stage we're about to enter. There are no photos yet for this. This was one of the things I was going there for, was to do prep work for this third stage. I went with a great organization called Hope International Development Agency. They're a Canadian nonprofit organization, but they do have a registration here in Japan, and they're based out of Nagoya. And the director, Lowell Shepard, I contacted him and let him know, he's a friend, that I would like to participate if I could, and when the time came, to give me a call. So what Hope did at the first in the emergency care stage was, these are called trekkers. They're water systems, purification systems. And the one group that we found, or that they found originally, was drinking water out of a swimming pool for the first week. And they found them by helicopter. And these systems can provide clean water for 800 to 1,000 people. So, in Tohoku, a lot of communities are cut off very easily from the tsunami, and they're drinking well water, they're drinking river water, they're just drinking whatever they can find, and it's very dangerous. So that was one of the things that they did, and I was not involved in this stage. This is distribution, obviously supplies being delivered, donations. This is one of the things that I did. I did drive trucks and drop them off. This is one of the main things that Hope was doing. We also did it by helicopter. They were kind of a unique organization, as they had a tremendous amount of money given to them by a few people. I should note that they don't solicit donations, although they do receive them. In this situation, they had an individual who was willing to spend a lot of money and wanted them to kind of spend it the Hope way. And so they had a helicopter, and I think over the course of up until about a week ago, they were flying. They had about 40 different helicopters going. And they were finding communities that the government just weren't getting to, and making sure that they get it. But now the roads are open, so the helicopters are gone. Now, the place I went to is called Miyatojima. Miyatojima is located in just north of Sendai. It's one of the, the Japanese Nihon Sankei, which is one of the 3 most beautiful spots in Japan. And as you can see, there's a lot of curvature, a lot of nooks and crannies on that island, and also the whole coast is that way. So when the tsunami comes in, it can cut communities off very, very easily. So when you start heading to Miyatojima, one of the things that you notice is this is the entranceway right before you get to the island. And there's debris like this, and this is 2 hours. This is already 2 hours north of Sendai. And as we know, the tsunami and the disaster is all the way from Fukushima up. And you can drive another 6 hours up the coast, and it's going to be like this. And no photo can prepare you for what you see. It is beyond any devastation ever. And for those of us who survived, who lived through Kobe, and who saw Kobe, this is on a scale that dwarfs that. So as you're driving into Miyatojima, forests are gone. You come to this little highway, well, not highway, this little road that the SDF built, and at the time now it's open all the time, but when we first got there, this would close at night. The tidal basin would go over the water if it got if the high tide came in, or if it was too windy. So they would shut it down. And even now, when the tide gets up a little too high, the road gets closed, so you don't really know. But They basically lock down the island every evening. And what's very strange is you're driving and you're seeing all of this, and then you cross into the island, and the very next thing you see is this. And you see this beautiful, untouched, literally just beautiful part of the island, and you're kind of in, kind of hits you, like you've been seeing all this damage, and then you see this really nice part of the island. And it's, as you go to other areas throughout the region, you discover that, everything kind of inland is untouched. There's very little earthquake damage that you can see inland until you get to the coast, and it's all tsunami damage. Literally, when you see every video that you watch of the tsunami coming in, you never see wide-scale building collapse. It just did not exist. Granted, buildings did collapse, but you don't see it on a wide-scale nature, which is a real testament to the building code here. But the tsunami, when it comes in, it just ripped it all apart. So when you're just a little bit inland, 10, 12 kilometers, you can't tell that the disaster had happened. So you go, you see this beautiful part of the island, then you drive 30 more seconds and you're back into a debris field. And what you can notice about the debris field here is, this is the foundation of the home. And you see, 50 of these spread out, and you realize that that foundation is not the start of a new construction. It looks literally like you're going to have a new construction happening. That's how it looks like. But, the house is just cut right off. And you look out and you just see, a bunch of these lined up along the fields. In this case, you can see that the water rushed in and then pulled the debris back out. So there's not a lot of debris here. And then when you come to other areas of the island, you'll notice that the tsunami came in, it pushed all the debris up in there. It didn't take any of it out, and you walk through it, and it is literally overwhelming. And one of the really hard things for me when the first time when I went, you're looking at this, you're talking to survivors, and then you look out, and you see this beautiful, calm sea. It's it's beautiful. And on the day we were there was no wind, so the waves weren't kicking up or anything. It was just so peaceful. And to know that created that much damage and destruction and killed that many people is really hard to comprehend. So what's it like in an emergency shelter? Well, it's very easy to, no electricity, you live by daylight, you wake up when the sun comes, you go to bed when it's sleep. There's no communications of any nature. You have no water, so you have no toilets. So you imagine 500 people using the toilet with no water to dispose of the waste. So you have sanitary issues. There's no heat. It's very cold. And at this time of the year, when it happened, it was actually a good thing that it was cold because there's so much dead matter in the water that if this was in the summer, you probably would have had a fourth tragedy beyond the nuclear issue. And then you have no trash pickup. But one of the great things about the shelter we were in, they were still separating their trash. They had their namagomi, your compostable, you had your PET bottles, you had your burnables, your non-burnables, and they separated out everything. Yet, literally like a couple yards outside of the shelter is this massive debris field. And, it's just one of those things of trying to keep little parts of your daily life going all the time. So in this shelter, you walk in and it's very, very quiet. And, this is a home of 500 people, yet I was expecting to see something like, people crying, people in pain, people, maybe depressed, sadness, and you don't get that. It was actually very peaceful. It was actually very relaxing in a way. You have no privacy though. I mean, everything you do, everybody gets to see. So that's a mental strain. People are gathered out in the yard. They're heating around fires. You notice that what they're burning the wood beams from their homes. This is not your normal fuel source, but that's all they have, and that's how they're staying warm. There's like a makeshift government inside the shelter. This is off to the side, and what they do is they're recording who stays there every single night, the donations that come in. They're keeping very good records here. And so when you give a donation, you feel really good because it's not going to waste. It's not going into a black market. It's not going somewhere else. They're really tracking it, taking care of it, and making sure that it gets distributed among everybody. And they have their regular meetings of the group so that everybody's informed and knows what's going on. And here they track who stayed by village. On this particular island in Miyatojima, there's 5 different villages, and they separated by men and women and who stayed there each night. And this particular night was 468 people. They had the responsibilities by village done, and then you can see on the calendar on the left side above the date is which village is handling what. And so what you learn is organization equals calm, and there's a reason this place is so peaceful. But I think that if there's a lesson Japan could teach the world with regards to disaster response, this is it. is that, in the first couple of days after a disaster, or in this case, the first week because of the type of landscape you have, is that essentially everybody looks to the government. They're going to look to the national government for the answers, for the solutions, for everything. But in the first couple of days, the government doesn't know what's going on either. They're trying to get information. They're trying to glean information from the communities. And this is how you get the information, is by having small groups organize themselves very well. And this is one of those few times where you have really good grassroots organization happens in Japan. And it really made a tremendous amount of calm for these places. It allowed them to settle people down. It allowed them to get information to the government. And then when the government was able to start to find those pockets of people who were not able to be accessed, they were able to quickly ascertain their needs and what they needed to get there. And I think that this is a model, if it's even possible to export, in disaster management, is a good lesson for the world to learn. Anyway, so in the morning you wake up and everybody cleans up inside. Donations come in, they get distributed. People are still living out in their cars, and it's cold at night. It's 5 degrees below zero, and I slept in our van that night, and I got to tell you, it's the worst experience. This is what you eat, and you're eating this every single day. Packaged, processed foods. But ironically, they were getting a lot of fruits and vegetables by the time we got there. And one woman was like, "You want an orange? I'm sick of oranges." Doctors and nurses come in. The kids come out into the yard. They get little stamps that show they attended the morning exercise at Taiso. And then here you go, another routine, keep the routines of daily life, trying to keep things going. What you can't see is behind here is another whole group of people who are participating in the morning exercise. So it's actually kind of fun. The SDF is there. The day we got there was the first day that they actually put in a shower unit, so the first time in over almost 3 weeks that people were able to be showered. And so, when I first got in the shelter, I saw these kids all clean. I kind of wondered why are they so clean, and that was the reason, because the day before they had their first shower. And they'll only get to shower maybe twice a week because of the volume that they can handle. And to keep, again, custom alive, there's a little fudo inside it. There's a Japanese bath inside this little thing. And one of the guys who was installing the water system units couldn't believe that. Why not just the shower? No, you have to have tradition. So they made sure that there was a bath. So our job is to go establish a relationship, try to build trust with this community, try to find out their needs. Because any nonprofit can jump in there and say, "Oh, we're going to help you." But if they don't want your help, it's not going to work. And if their goals and their needs are different than the nonprofit's goals and needs, it's not going to work. And because Hope is a relationship-based organization, they're there for the long run. They want us to be there in 2 years working with this community. It's not just come in and run out. So they really need to know that this is a community they're going to want to work with, and that the community really wants them there as well. Otherwise, it's wasted donations. So this is my partner in crime who I had to go with. He's a nutcase, literally crazy, I think, but a wonderful guy. His name is Yoshi. He's a Hope board member and a professor in Nagoya. And he wears bow ties. He's got 24 pairs of glasses. So he has a different pair to put on every day for his students. He drives a car that runs on vegetable oil. So we're told that as he crosses through Nagoya, people think it smells like tempura when he drives by. And so I was going to spend a very intense number of days alone with this gentleman. And, his grand plan was we were going to make coffee. And I thought he was freaking nuts. You can imagine driving for 2 hours through these debris fields, just getting into this island. And he's telling me how much we're going to make a difference by making coffee. And I'm in the coffee industry, and I'm going, "You're freaking nuts." And I'm just thinking to myself, can I get out of here? But it was already too late. So, coffee connections. So here we are in the shelter. We're brewing coffee. We find some kids. Kids are the easiest route to anything. We bring them over. They're bored out of their mind. We get them involved. They start learning how to make coffee. The adults kind of watch. So we have this little cafe in the corner of the shelter. And, Yoshi's great at this because he's explaining how you grind the beans and then how you have to pour in the water, how you fold the filter and stick it in. And the kids are enraptured by this because they've had nothing to do. And, it's like a science project for them. And it was just so much fun. And, I kind of fell in love with a few of these kids. I wish I could take them home, And they're really funny. And you can just see the joy that they're having by making coffee. And of course, they're not drinking the coffee. The adults are. But, they did this. And this is where something that really, started. This is what the first thing that really showed me that we were making a difference was when a woman came over to us and said, "Thank you. Thank you so much." And we asked why. She said, "My son is so introverted. I have never seen him so outgoing. I have never seen him poured himself out before ever. And I don't know how you guys did. I mean, I was listening to this going, just for making coffee, and this was a kid who normally, even without the tsunami, was normally not going to come out, and we made a change in his life. And so, one of the things I learned was it was day-to-day little things like this. People were missing, contact with the outside world. They were missing the ability to, enjoy. I mean, think about it. You wake up in the morning. It's a simple part of life. You don't need coffee to live. You don't need it to survive. But, having a good cup of coffee, not instant, can make a huge difference in just, how you start the day. And these are the little things. I mean, what's better than a newspaper and a cup of coffee? You could never tell that was a picture in a shelter. People had smiles. They would come. They would sit down. And I realized that this is where Yoshi was brilliant. Was by having this cafe. What's a cafe? A cafe is where a person will come and sit, they discuss things, they can be relaxed. And so people would run it up and say, okay, we're finally getting a chance to let out. We're finally getting a chance to communicate with somebody other than the people that they've been living in a gym with. So we weren't doing a grand gesture. We weren't able to come in and do this, this big, large, money project or something. But we were able to just be very small, very simple, and it made a big impact in their morale and in their day-to-day life. And it, as a cafe owner myself, it showed me the value not only of the industry, but of how people connect through, a simple thing of, sitting down, having a cup of coffee, and having a discussion. And it really was moving. And so, if there's a moral to this, it's that the little things count, and that when disaster relief happens, sometimes don't try to do the grand big thing. Just go and do that one small little thing that you can help with somebody, and you never know what it might be. But if it can bring them a bit of their day-to-day lives back, then that's the thing that's probably best. Thank you.
Yeah.